Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today with how to demystify your lease using AI. This is part of our Lease Genius education series where we are helping students, families, anyone that maybe is signing a lease for the first time or even the second time in Boston to understand what's important to know and how to assess what you're agreeing to in a very quick way. So let's get started with where we'll be going today because I want to leave plenty of time to walk through one of these with you all. So I will share more about our team and off-campus engagement and support at Northeastern. I'm Mallory Perna, I'm the director, and I'll be sharing more about the staff here and how we can help you. We will spend time going over some basics of lease contracts, so whether you're signing in Boston or somewhere else, you know what to expect. We'll take a quick look at the resources on our website now and how you can leverage those, and then we'll get into actually walking through using those tools along with AI and an actual lease to come up with an assessment of what the contract says and maybe what may be some concerns or negotiating clauses to consider. So our team in off-campus engagement and support serves three main functions here. We are located on the Boston campus, and we are here to help inbound students find apartments, roommates, navigate realtor relationships. So apartment search resources is number one. Second, we are here for renters' rights guidance. So questions about who pays for heat, what do I do if my landlord hasn't shoveled snow, how do I manage a roommate conflict off campus, any renters' rights or apartment living situations or concerns, we can help provide advice and navigate next steps. And then third, a connection back to campus, back to community. So we want to make sure that students know that they can utilize and leverage all of the resources on our campus, attend the events, get involved in student organizations, and we host events on campus ourselves to help build some of that connection. Additionally, we do the same in the community. So we want students to get involved, be civically engaged, and learn about all the assets in the many neighborhoods around Boston. So we do a lot of programming with our community ambassador student teams. They are photographed here, and we are located in 151 Spear Hall. So we're available by phone, email, online bookings, and have a robust website that you can visit for more information. So a couple things to know about lease contracts. There are, specifically in Boston, very few rules dictating what cannot be in a lease, right? What's strictly kind of forbidden or illegal. Most leases abide by contract law. So while I'm not a lawyer, I understand that by signing a lease, I am agreeing to its terms. And these leases are created from the landlord or property owner. So they are written to protect the owner, to protect their property, their asset. So it's important to read them thoroughly as an incoming tenant, as they are definitely not always written in your best interest. So you want to make sure that you understand the rules, the regulations, and if there's anything that's going to make it difficult for you to live there comfortably or anything that's going to be ambiguous about your time living there. So they're legally binding. You sign them, you've kind of agreed to all the rules, and they often last 12 months in Boston. There are definitely short-term leases, but rarely are they less than maybe 4 to 6 months. If you want something more flexible, you're probably looking at something like a sublet agreement or a room rental. But if you're doing a traditional Boston lease, you're looking at a 12-month fixed term rental. That means all the terms and all the costs stay the same during that 12-month period. And then secondly, joint liability. So everyone on the lease is jointly liable. It is not easy to break a lease. If there are two names on the lease, both roommates are jointly responsible. If there are four names on the lease, all students are jointly responsible. So any fine, any fee, any unpaid rent, whether it's one person causing it or everybody, everyone's going to bear that responsibility, which could be a late fee or eviction or something like that. So it's very important to understand that they're legally binding and jointly binding. Okay, our team has worked for over 10 years on building out tools, education, outreach to students and families to understand what in a lease, when you're a student at Northeastern, is going to really impact your living situation. So there's a lot to know about leases. Some of it can be very mundane, very everyday, and some of it is a little bit more interesting or more salient or impactful. So we want to make sure that we are informing you about the tools that we've had created before we add on this layer of AI. We do have a website and a checklist dedicated to looking at a lease. So very much you could just take this checklist, take your lease and say one by one, how much does it cost? How do I pay rent? What does it say about subletting? What happens if something breaks? Who's responsible for the utilities, right? You can go down this checklist of everything we've outlined as being most important to know and things that are required to be in there. We also have videos, we have social media, we have all kinds of other ways that you can get this information and learn quickly about what's important in a lease. So please know that our website and our social media are also great places to go to get some general knowledge of where to start. Now, if you already feel like you kind of know about these things and you're just saying, how do I look at a lease quickly? My realtor, my landlord just gave me a 40-page lease. I have to sign it within 24 hours. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. Ideally, you're reading the whole lease, right? In a perfect world, you're taking the time to read every single component of this and understand every component of this to make sure there's nothing that's contradictory, nothing that's ambiguous, and nothing that is maybe just written in a way that is going to put you in a difficult position or make you liable for something that you shouldn't be liable for. So that's where AI has been a very helpful tool. So our team previously, we would read leases along with students, and we'll still do this by request, but we were doing hundreds of them a year. And it does take about 1 hour to fully read a lease, fully understand it. So this can now be done in a matter of minutes with AI. As you know, Northeastern has invested in Claude AI, also Microsoft Copilot. We're going to use Claude today. Could you use ChatGPT or another PDF reader or another AI tool? Absolutely, right? It's not just about the tool so much as the prompts that you're using. And we want to make sure that we are actually educating AI in some ways and giving them some context for what we're trying to do. And if we're able to give appropriate prompts, tools, and context to AI, doesn't matter what platform it is, you're likely going to get a similar result from each one. So we can actually try this. First, we want to provide Claude the background information. So I'm going to go through steps 1, 2, and 3 really quickly here, and then I actually want to share my screen and show it. So first, we want to provide that background information. You log into Claude AI with your Northeastern account, and then you want to actually be specific about what you plan to do. So you're giving AI the breakdown of what you want from them. An example, this might be typing in as a prompt, I want help reviewing a lease contract using a checklist provided to me. I will be signing this lease jointly with roommates, right? That gives some context. Then you're going to tell AI, please use this checklist that Northeastern's created. I'm going to upload it along with my lease contract. I'm going to upload that and address my concerns listed below. You could also say, I have concerns about utilities. I have concerns about what it says about pest mitigation. So make sure that you're being specific. You can start general, but general questions and prompts are going to result in general answers. So the more specific you can be about what you're looking for, the better. And I'll show you mine here in a second. Step 2, we want to give AI that baseline knowledge that I talked about, right? Asking AI to read a lease will probably just give you an oversimplification, a long bulleted list of everything the lease says. And then you need to read that. So will it save you time? Read the lease versus read the bulleted information? Maybe. It might be in more layperson terms, which could be helpful. Instead, what we're trying to do here is really give AI some guidelines, some parameters about what we're asking it to look for in a lease. So we want to upload the Lease Genius checklist that Northeastern has created along with a copy of the lease. And this should be a copy that actually has information in it. You'll see on this slide that this is a blank lease. That's not going to be very helpful. So you want it to have your name, dates, amounts, everything as filled out as possible to get an accurate result of what it really is saying and what you're legally agreeing to do for 12 months. So you might be asking, why these resources? Why can't I use a blank one? And I kind of just answered that, right? Without these resources, it's general. Without information in the lease, it's very generic and not that helpful to you either. And it's going to say a lot of things like, there are no names on this lease. There is no amount for rent. And that we can see clearly without AI. And then we're going to do a quick run through once we have AI with the checklist and your lease document. We're going to put them together. And so you're going to likely get kind of something that's an initial summary. It's not going to likely be a deep dive. It's going to be kind of like a snapshot of what you hopefully already know. But this is a good way to check that dates, times, and amounts are all correct, right? Is this how much you agreed to for first month's rent? Did you know there was going to be a lock fee? Is the address correct? Are the names correct? This is helpful just from an accuracy standpoint. You want to make sure that this is what you agreed to. A question we get from students all the time is, am I good to sign it? Like, this looks fine. This is pretty much what I thought. And it's hard for us to say if something is good for you to sign, right? And that's why we want everyone to start prompting with more specific questions. Like, would this lease be good if I wanted to change roommates? Is that possible? Can I sublet with this lease? What happens if there is an issue with plumbing in this lease? There are very specific clauses in the addendum, and AI can help get to those more quickly if we're asking it good questions and providing it that checklist versus just saying, is this good to sign? Because that's kind of a very subjective question. So you're always going to want to ask AI first, a general question, possibly, although the more specific you can be, the better, but try to get as specific as possible. After this general summary, I like to start adding on and layering more information on. So I'll say something like, okay, what does it say about subletting? Or I might say, can you also run this lease against Boston tenant rates and see if there's anything that's out of the ordinary, anything that doesn't seem fair to tenants, anything that maybe is illegal or should be negotiated. Maybe these questions get into a legal place, and obviously AI is not a replacement for a lawyer, but you can get some interesting perspectives from AI, and that could make you just think differently before you sign. So I also recommend using this QR code to send the City of Boston information to AI along with your lease and the checklist. You can do this for any city, any country. You can even do it generically and see what it says. But again, the more specific you get, the better the result you're going to get. So let me stop sharing this for a minute so that we can actually do a run through. And I did this before the presentation, so I apologize that it's not exactly the same, but you can kind of see that this is the prompt I gave it. I want you to help me review a lease by using a lease checklist and knowledge of Boston rental laws. I will provide the checklist as well as the website with rental laws from my region, right? And then that's when AI is going to say, great. And right, they're confirming that they understand what you want, right? And then they ask for what they need. And this is exactly what we want, right? They need the checklist, they need the website, they need the lease. So then we're going to feed it those things. So you see that I upload the PDF of the Lease Genius document. I upload my lease. And then I'm going to see, they basically tell me what they're going to do. So AI is very good about telling you what it's going to do. If for some reason it's saying something you don't want, this is your opportunity to correct it and say, oh, that's not what I want, actually. So it says, I'm going to systematically go through each required element and check it against Boston rental regulations. And that's when we got at first this snapshot, but you'll see if you scroll down, there were areas of concern, right? There were maybe pet fees. Are there rent increases? These aren't present, right? So that's good. So you cannot increase the rent during a lease term. And this lease confirms that the rent would be the same, right? It's a fixed term. So in that way, it's compliant. The lease says no dogs or other animals without consent. Doesn't talk about pet fees, so that's compliant. Pet fees are actually not allowed in Boston. It's kind of an interesting law. There is pet rent, though, so they found a way around it. Late fee, something to think about, right? This could be excessive. Is $50 excessive? I would actually probably say no from looking at a lot of leases. And Boston law states that all late fees must be reasonable, and they have to wait 30 days to actually, push it through. So sometimes it can help you know that, oh, there is a law around late rent, and let me look into what that is, right? It also shows you where this is. So you can kind of do a deeper dive into your lease. It's going to help you identify where to look more and more. It will tell you here that utilities are incomplete. So then you can go back to the utilities and say, or back to your realtor or landlord and say, hey, like, I noticed that utility section is incomplete and ask for clarification. And so that's their chance to write back to you saying, actually, electricity is included, but heat is not, or water is not included. We have a sub meter, whatever it might be. And AI does have some interesting limitations that I will get to. It has some bias. It will assume that some things are tricky or extreme when they're not. It tends to kind of be a little bit dramatic, is how I like to explain it. Um, it will say things like red flags when sometimes they're not red flags. Sometimes it's just things that you need more clarification on. So let's see if we can find an example of that. This is saying that there's professional cleaning required. We know a lot of leases do require students to pay for professional cleaning. AI is saying, you know, this should be specified more. I don't know how much more specific a landlord could really get, but you could say like, hey, is there a place that I should get it cleaned? Are there certain types of cleaning I should ask for? Do you have a list of things that need to be cleaned specifically so I don't get charged for anything? So a lot of times AI might say things that are concerning, but really they're just maybe vague. But I think that's still really helpful because if it's vague to AI, it's probably going to be vague to you when you go to try to actually implement these cleaning steps before you move out of an apartment. They're also going to give you some recommendations, right? And these are kind of the recommendations that we've always given to students, like please request written clarification, specifically here about utilities. Always a big one, right? You don't want to go into an apartment not knowing if there's added costs every month or something's included. You also need to know if you need to set them up yourself. You can always negotiate fees, right? Document pre-existing damage when you move in. These are best practices for an apartment. A lot of these are being taken from our Lease Genius checklist. So the way that they're organized, though, is great, right? Because they put them down to like before signing, right after signing, and while you're living there. So it took kind of maybe what looked like a long checklist from Northeastern and put it into very digestible chunks for you. I also liked that they took the time to summarize what they found to be legally compliant or not with this little chart. And a lot of it's like $50 may be excessive. Again, it was able to notify that like this is kind of subjective, but it may be worth asking like, is $50 normal? Is it not? Should you ask your realtor? Should you ask your roommates? Should you consult with Northeastern staff? An extermination may violate Boston law. In Boston, if there are multiple units in an apartment, it's always the landlord's responsibility to pay for pests. So it's referring back to that Boston law saying, hey, you should not have to pay for pest extermination if you're in a building with more than one unit, which most students are. So then you go back and maybe look at your pest law a little bit more. Or alternatively, you can type, can you please pull up the clause about pest extermination, right? And then instead of you flipping through or control Fing through 50 pages, it's going to queue it up right for you. So there's a lot of benefits to using this method to review your lease. I know a lot of students and families have done this already, and we just want to provide our guidance for how you could do it even more specifically to Boston and even more specifically to what we know students have challenges with when living off campus. So I mentioned AI always has limitations or some bias. It's never going to be as perfect as actually reading a lease, but it is going to help you kind of get a very quick overview of what you need to know. I'm always going to be a big cheerleader for sending your lease to our team with your specific questions as well. You could do AI, but you could also send it to our office, which has over 10 years experience looking at leases. So when AI says this fee is excessive, we can say, oh, that fee is actually very much not excessive. Or yes, AI is correct. That's way too much for a fee. So just a reminder, I feel like this went backwards of who our team is. We are in 151 Spear. We have 3 professional staff, a co-op, 9 students working here. So if you don't want to speak to a professional staff member, you can hear directly from a student. Please follow us on Instagram at NUF Campus. And if you have any questions about your lease, please come see us, email us, or send your questions through our Lease Genius form, and we will get back to you by email. So thank you for being here today. I'm going to turn off the recording now. Take care.